from the rural areas, I would love us to think, what can we do to help them? What can you do to help me? Because I'm from the rural area, right? Okay, let's proceed. Now let's look at the introduction of what is RuralRise, okay? It's a non-profit organization dedicated to uplift rural communities in Namibia by promoting sustainable development and empowering youth and reduce rural-urban migration, which is actually a big challenge that we are currently facing. So it's like everybody is just moving from rural area to urban, okay? Now let's look at our mission and vision. Our mission is to empower individuals, foster transformative change, and enhance the quality of life in rural Namibia communities through strategic program and initiative. And then our vision is to create resilient and sustainable rural hubs and opportunity in Namibia, reversing the trend of rural-urban migration. Why RuralRise? It should be us because we are looking at addressing the rural-urban divide, promoting inclusive growth, fostering community resilience. Now let's look at our focus. We focus on policy advocacy, capacity building, resilience and sustainability, community engagement and empowerment, youth development and participation, data collection and research, gender equality and social inclusion, civics education and related activity. Let me just appreciate our strategy team, our board members, that they have been with us from the beginning. Given that our organization is very new, it's actually a baby, it's just 3 years. It's actually just turning 3 years this year. And they have been with us from the beginning until now. And unfortunately, their term is coming to an end this end of month. And we would love to get new board members from all the stakeholders. Probably some of them, they might be here. So if you are really interested and would love to assist us and join us in uplifting the rural communities, please.
All right. Thank you very much, Sarti, for that wonderful introduction and also walking us through the lovely documentary that we shot last year. As introduced briefly, my name is Eslien Tsuses. I am the founder of RuralRise Community Empowerment. And today, I really just want to share with you a variety of activities that we have been working on, targeting rather, or working with rural youth, identifying what is a rural youth, what do they look like, who are they, how are they a rural youth, and all of that. And I know we have spoken a bit about fragmenting and taking away from things that are already happening. So when I was sitting in the audience, I realized that we are sort of fragmenting what is a youth even further, going from urban youth to now rural youth. But trust me, there is something interesting for you here. So if we look at our population, we have already, through other presentations, seen that our population has sort of split evenly, although our rural areas have lost a lot of its active citizens, right? We have seen the growth from 57.2% in 2011 to now it being 50%, and then urban areas increasing from 42.8% to 50%. So we have lost a lot of people to urban areas pretty much ever since 2011. And if you look at the youth distribution, one thing that we had as sort of a misunderstanding or a misrepresentation is we thought that rural communities are made up of elder people and children, because a lot of times the stereotype is that young people are leaving their kids with their elders, and so there's really not much happening in terms of when we do invest in the rural communities, are there people to carry programs through and projects through and so forth. So a couple of approaches that we have is to talk about the previously excluded or rather less engaged voices, which we have found to be rural youth, who, let me just go back one more time, who make up 29.8% of rural areas. And if you compare it to other demographics in terms of the age group, you do see that rural youth are actually making up the larger part of the demographic. So there are a lot of young people in rural areas. We just need to understand who are they, what are their aspirations, and the different challenges that they face. So as I mentioned, we do a lot of talking about issues. So one of the platforms that we are working on currently is called the Ignite Rural Development Vodcast series, where we have different experts talk about their work and their field of expertise, walking us through what are the policy challenges, what are the implementation challenges. We've already shot all of the episodes with Ms. Kapena Chombonde, Mr. James Mnube, and Ms. Chloe Brandt to really bring out the different challenges that communities are facing and how that is affecting young people in rural communities. So I'm excited to share that with you in the future, should you follow us on our social media. One of the most important projects that we worked on ever since we launched in 2023 is the From the Ground Up project. And as it says in its name, we wanted to engage grassroots. We wanted to engage with the people that actually sort of have a huge impact or influence on the different development agendas in the country. Because as we understand, a lot of the inputs do come from the bottom in terms of the bottom-up approach in development planning. So they tell us what they need. And so a lot of the programs that are coming down are coming from their perspective. However, what we're seeing is that a lot of the interventions are not truly reflected on the ground. And we wanted to bring out the lived realities of these people. As development planners, you are bringing out different projects and initiatives to target their development in terms of livelihood, but do they see it? Do they feel it? Do they actually see that when you're bringing a road to a community, is it improving their life or not? What are the certain areas that they're prioritizing over others, for example? Yes, we understand that every region is different. However, we still need to find a way to prioritize different development agendas regionally. Since 2024, with the From the Ground Up project, we have hosted leadership and advocacy workshops in Udusep, Uis, and Akombahe in the Erongo region. We filmed the From the Ground Up documentary, and what you saw with Nicolene Kosses sharing her experience in the rural community is just part of so many other young people that are coming from 3 different rural areas, really telling us their lived realities in terms of what they need and what they are lacking. And we have also drafted a policy brief to bring different studies together to, of course, then still bring out the need for developing young people in Namibia, especially in rural communities. And we've also launched the Rural Youth Network, where we have capacitated 16 youth leaders in those 3 communities to increase the rural youth participation when it comes to the decision-making platforms. When we talk about decision-making platforms, we're talking about them being participants in the CDCs, the SDCs, the VDCs, and so forth. I was lucky when 2020 came and the pandemic hit. I moved back to Akombahe. I volunteered at MICT, and because I was a young person in the vicinity, I was once called in for a CDC meeting, and I was like, oh, so this is how decisions are made. However, when I looked around the room, I could not see another young person than myself. So it was really a wake-up call. And the curiosity grew to, is this an experience for other young people in Namibia, especially in rural areas? And so that's why we launched that platform. Nicolene is genuinely a great representation of what it looks like when you are bringing opportunities and empowerment and capacitating the person in terms of just not the skills that they need, but leadership, understanding who they are and what they're capable of in a specific environment. She was this year invited to participate as a panelist at this year's Youth Quake conference in Windhoek, And she also took part as the Okombahe Civic Engagement Officer of the RYN network in different workshops in Windhoek as well, meeting different decision makers and so forth. So we're really lucky to have been able to be part of her story, and we look forward to seeing what she can do for her community in Okombahe and how far she can pretty much inspire other young people in their community. So I don't want to go too much deep into the understanding of the rural context, since we're all pretty much really interested in what is rural development, so we understand the different impacts. The only thing that I would like to highlight here is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So in my experience, I find that a lot of times people sort of misunderstand what rural life is compared to urban life. When in an urban area, you wake up every day, you have so much fields in your life, you have so much to do, you have so much potential of anything happening for you that day. However, in a rural community, it's different. Not only are the services not enough, the opportunity to do things becomes limited due to infrastructure challenges and so many other challenges. So as Nicolene mentioned in her video, people then resort to things that they shouldn't. It is not because they want to, it is just because the environment is not conducive enough. Yes, so to highlight some challenges that rural youth face, besides the lack of infrastructural development, which we are all responsible for in this room, and the low engagement that they sometimes had at decision-making platforms, and also the lack of consultation as well. I know that one of the presenters spoke a little bit about consultation yesterday, as well as the limited access to education and vocational training opportunities. One of the things that really, really impacts, and this we sort of got from the horse's mouth during our leadership and advocacy workshops, as well as our community dialogues that we hosted, was when opportunities are shared, young people complain in rural areas that they are unable to either apply because by the time that they see it on their phone or by the time that their grandmother is telling them about it, the deadline has passed. And that was such a shocking thing to hear, that a person is literally losing out on an opportunity because they just don't have the access to certain platforms or devices or knowledge, for example. And then as well as the adult-centric policies that take place, they spoke about when government is putting together programs and they are saying that 50% is for young people and 30% is for women. When it gets to them, it does not reflect the reality of the planned intervention. So they say the elders in our communities are actually taking our opportunities. So this is coming from them in terms of what they share as their lived experience. So I would really like you to watch this documentary. It is available on YouTube, as well as the different push and pull factors that impact their potential to becoming active citizens in terms of doing so much that can bring value to our economy, is the push and pull factors. A lot of times they said, when we go to an urban area, they would say, I would go to high school in Swakopmund. However, when I get to Swakopmund, I'm challenged with rent, I'm challenged with utilities, I'm challenged with cosmetics money and taxi money and so forth. And then because my parents or I don't have an extra job or whatsoever, I'm forced to then move back to my rural community. So those are challenges that we as RuralRise did not think about or were not exposed to before we actually engaged young people in the rural areas and really hear from them what their experiences are. So young people in the rural areas are, I believe, the key to unlocking some of these challenges that we are having. The question that we keep having when we're looking at the progress and the impact and how it translates into real projects and programs on the ground and the sustainability aspect of those projects and programs is, as development planners, do you have the data to say, in 10 years, this is what we worked on, we impacted so many people, and now we still have these projects running, and all of that? Because when we tried to look for this information, we couldn't find it, and we did call the regional councils, believe me, but we're not able to find this information. So, for example, when my colleague Max spoke about the database, I was like, yes, imagine if we just had that database where it's easy when a person has an idea to go on there and understand what are the needs, who are the people, what are the qualifications, where are they demographically, and how do I access them. If we had such a platform, it would make such a huge difference. So in terms of Namibia's rural youth, they are there qualified. Yes, they might have a grade 10, grade 12, or even a master's, even PhD, they might have it, but they are there sitting, waiting for the opportunity to really, really contribute and unlock different things within themselves and their communities. So our approach really is to capacitate, train, and connect them to existing training platforms, organizations, government, whatsoever it may be. With Nicolene, for example, we are exposing her to different civic engagement platforms, connecting her to counselors and all of that so that she understands civic engagement, and she's able to then, with the right resources and mentorship and monitoring and evaluation from our side and incubation platforms, she's able to then plow back into her community and ensure that more young people also participate in our civic journey as a country, pretty much. So that's pretty much our approach that we use when we are engaging young people in rural areas. Our policy brief covers all of the recommendations that we have on the screen. The one that I want to highlight is to invest in youth leadership development. Honestly, as a young person, when I'm hungry, when I don't have a house, when I don't have anything to call my own, I cannot focus on anything else but to try and get that $2 or $10 or $100 to buy bread or do something. It limits my capability to become a person that can plow back into my community, to build a business, to do all of these things. So we want to sort of divorce from struggle and get to empowerment and then bring it back. A side note that I would like to add here is, in terms of my experience with reaching out to different funding mechanisms, I've noticed that in terms of Namibia's landscape, we hardly invest in youth leadership development. However, when we are reaching out to foreign relations and so forth, they are more than happy to plow into that. So the question arises, why is that the case? However, I would like to highlight the African Pathfinders Leadership Initiative, which is a young organization itself. However, it looks into developing young people's leadership as people. Okay, so what was the myth when we started? That rural youth lack ambition, we didn't understand them. However, the reality is that they lack the platforms. The other myth also is that urban migration is inevitable, that people are just going to move. Someone will finish grade 10 or whatever, or grade 12, and they will choose to move to Windhoek or to Swakopmund or Wolfish Bay. But that isn't the case. When we have the right structures and platforms in place, then we understand that people will actually choose to stay in the rural areas. And as RuralRise, it is really our goal to make it fancy again, for young people in Namibia and Africa and SADC to want to live in the rural areas, to want to invest in the rural areas, to have a home, to have a car, to do so much. And for selfish reasons, when I retire, I want to retire in a community that has all the facilities I need as a person. So that also comes into play with that. So our team is a group of young, diverse women from all over Namibia. They are all Namibian, however, they are all based all over the world. We have Miss Juliet Binda, she's based in Germany. Miss Sarti, coming all the way from Oshakati. Miss Alina Bango, she's based in China currently. And Miss Valamina, she's also based in Tsumeb. And then we also take in interns from the variety of tertiary institutions that we have, which is NAST, UNAM, and IUM. So Ms. Amunyala is one of our current interns at RuralRise, and we have so far had about 6 interns that have gone or have been with us ever since the beginning. To close off, I would like to say that rural-urban migration is something that can be tackled, and I believe so much in the capability of all of the regional councils that are sitting here, the different governors and councillors that really drive and bring our needs to the important platforms like our national assemblies. I believe so much in our capability, and I believe that we can make it so that rural-urban migration is reversed. However, we do need to be realistic in terms of the timeline. We do need to know when do we want to start, or when do we want to say, by this time, we want to have 50% of all the people in urban areas move back. How do we incentivize that move? For example, we do need to have a clear goal with timeline and resources and everything stated out. And on a national level, we have challenges with rural urban migration. However, on a geopolitical landscape, we are still losing young people to the rest of the world. So that's another conversation for another day. But thank you very much for paying attention to our presentation and inviting us to be here at this platform as well.
So, any questions? Any comments? Very lively presentation. Yes?
Thank you, RuralRise, for your presentation. And I would like to comment on your energy, vibrant and great. I just had a few questions and probably observations. You've been in existence for about 3 years, and you have mentioned quite a number of challenges that the rural youth are facing. However, it did not really come out strongly on the activities that you are implementing. And I think it would also be great. You don't know who's in the room. You could find your potential donor in the room just to also maybe enlighten us on your 5 or 3 years plan on what you envision to do with the organization and how you can assist the youth in rural areas. I also felt like it was quite important to indicate or tell us who you have worked with in terms of stakeholders or partners and who you are currently working with. That was just my comments or suggestions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So for the first question, thank you. And our plan currently is to expand our rural youth network from Erongo region to the rest of the regions. However, we will do that in phases. And so in terms of expanding our rural youth networks, it's still with the application of our approach, which is to identify, or rather the young people tell us what they need, and we develop interventions with them, or we connect them to existing interventions, because we are not in the business of duplication. If government already has a platform, we will assist our young people to access that platform. If government has information for young people, we will provide it to them through our network. So we will apply our approach through our expansion. For the second question on who have we engaged with, is we have, rather on our pilot project, which is the policy sprint, we worked with the European Union, we worked with the National Youth Council, the police in the different rural communities, rural youth themselves, policymakers. We ensure that we invite each and every stakeholder to every community meeting that we hold, or any relevant project or training that we have in the community. So we actually had full support from all of the stakeholders as well.
I'm looking at government having nice programs, especially the Ministry of Agriculture there, because I saw people doing poultry farming there. But now our youth are just at shabins. They are drinking alcohol, they are smoking humbly, marijuanas and other stuffs. So, my ladies, my dear girl, tell me, you have been out there in the community. What are the strategies? How do you assist me? How do you advise me as a regional councillor to pull out this youth from the shebeens where they are and bring them to the platforms, whether it's libraries, constituency offices, meetings? They don't attend. They're just at the shebeens, they're drinking alcohol. Tell me, assist me in this. And please, when you are doing the meetings there, a youth with a master and sitting at home, no. He must start somewhere, even sweeping, even fed cooks. Don't be with the master and you're sitting home. No. Start volunteering yourself. Tell them, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
And on the third question, in terms of, or rather comment in terms of the sheepings, and this is why I pretty much wanted to bring it to your attention that rural life is not the same as urban life. It's very challenging as a person in a rural area when you develop a habit of drinking alcohol. And there's, I don't know how to explain this without really taking you there, so you can ask the person in person to really understand. But why are you wasting your life in front of a sheeping? It has to do with the person. They don't have it in them to, or rather, they don't have it with them in that moment to have any other focus in life than to drink, for example. They don't have any aspirations. They are hopeless. They have been disappointed for so long. In Udusep, when we went there, the first day of our community dialogue, the young people said, but why must we listen to you? Why must we trust you? Every time people come here, they promise us things and then they leave. They do one project and then they leave. After a couple of years, the project dies. And they made reference to the Mara plant in their community, for example. And they mentioned so many other projects that people attempted to start and then they left. So they are left hopeless, and we reinforce that hopelessness by disappointing them. So I think that just really has to do with the person. We have to identify, how do we get someone that's drinking every day in front of a shipping back to the classroom? How do we inspire them? What do we need to bring into their life so that they choose the alternative and not stay the course?
Mine is just a more practical question. What gaps have you actually then identified, either with your funders or at this platform that you are, which is the regional councils mostly, that you can then actually intertwine your activities and your goals with whatever projects that the regional councils have? What is a gap that you've identified that you actually need assistance in? Either is it then validation from regional councils? Is it funding from foundations? What are the angles that you can actually then be assisted for your program to actually then flourish? Yeah.
Thank you.
Like I mentioned, is really leadership development. I'm a product of leadership development. I've gone through so many leadership programs in Namibia, in other countries, and so forth. And that exposure brought the opportunity for me to gain confidence to do certain things and have the understanding and the belief to say that in my community, things are possible when these things are in place. And when these things are not in place, I'm able to find alternative ways of making it happen. So I believe that is where the gap is. You can start a project in a rural area, in certain areas, for example, in a Kombai. In the past, we've had poultry projects, we've had community kitchen projects, and so forth. But 4 months, 3 months, 8 months is even pushing it. That project is dead and has accumulated debt that is, it can't even be paid back by the same people that started the project, for example. So I think that is where the gap is. We have to capacitate people in terms of leading themselves, and so that they're able to lead others as well. Yes, we do need help with endorsements, where we want to be legitimate in every region since we are expanding our rural youth networks. We do need funding. Of course, funding is literally the core of everything. However, we are still going to continue to find volunteers to really put effort into the work that we do while we are working on gaining funding. And we also need spaces to operate from. It's good that I'm sitting in the room with people with buildings in their region. So please, when I reach out to you asking for, we just need a room where our Rural Youth Network Committee can operate from, please do provide us with that. I'm going to take the leap here and just put that out there.
Yeah, thank you very much, and all the thanks to the two vibrant ladies. You see, when you look at the structures of the development committees in the region, or in the regional councils, they talk about a representative from the youth. Now, you being your organization being a representative, a voice for the youth, also in the rural areas. How do you make yourself viable, visible? Actually, yeah. And then, how do you ensure that you are also represented at the development structures, just to avoid duplication of membership on that particular structures? Because you might find you are there as a RuralRise Namibian youth, and then there is also somebody from the Ministry of Youth itself. Maybe furthermore, are you also affiliated to the National Youth Council and the other youth structures that are in existence already? Thank you very much.
Good. That was the last one. Responses?
The last part about NYC, I believe, is yes, we are engaging with NYC. We are seeking to affiliate with them. That process is a process in itself to become a member of NYC as a youth initiative. However, RuralRise is not mainly just youth. We are focused on stimulating different activities to sort of provide awareness in terms of challenges and opportunities that exist in rural-urban development. So yes, one of our focus is focusing on young people, but we also want to talk about community-led projects. We also want to talk about advocating for decision-making platforms and so forth.
Thank you.